30 years ago this week, the music industry celebrated 30 years of Bob Dylan being in the music industry. This week, I don't think they're celebrating 60 years of it. No need. 30 years ago was incredible. The October 16th, 1992 concert at Madison Square Garden was shown live on pay-per-view. You'll see a couple ads for that. But it featured Eric Clapton, Willie Nelson, Richie Havens, Roger McGuinn, Sinead O'Connor, Neil Young, George Thorogood, Johnny Cash, Lou Reed, Tracy Chapman, Booker T and the MGs. More. Incredible show. Of course, it came out officially released on DVD and CD, perhaps even vinyl, in edited, remixed forms. So the pay-per-views got some stuff that, and camera angles that didn't end up on the official release. There's none of that here. There's just news clips and pay-per-view ads. So you got like CNN Showbiz Today, Week in Rock, segment that was part of the ABC In Concert series, and the pay-per-view ads. Hunt down the show. Worth watching the whole thing. Worth owning the whole thing. Great stuff. Great celebration. Bobfest, it never ends in this house.
In 1962, Bob Dylan changed the face of popular music. Now in 1992, live in concert on pay-per-view, together on one stage, Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, George Harrison, John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, Sinead O'Connor, Tom Petty, Neil Young, and much more. Columbia Records celebrates the music of Bob Dylan. This once-in-a-lifetime event can only be seen live on pay-per-view, Friday, October 16th from Madison Square Garden. Be sure to order this concert. Don't miss out.
Bob Dylan celebrates 30 years as a recording artist with a special concert next week in New York. Eric Clapton, George Harrison, Willie Nelson, and Neil Young are among the recording industry stars who will join Dylan in this tribute. In Concert salutes this historic event with a special profile of Bob Dylan. Now the AT&T In Concert calendar.
To him in song, his own songs to be precise. Mark Shearer talked with some of the performers.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam.
Songs like The Times They Are A-Changin' and Blowing in the Wind established Bob Dylan as the archetype singer-songwriter of the 1960s. His songs have been covered by everyone from the Byrds decades ago to Guns N' Roses and Sophie B. Hawkins today, a tribute to the genius, influence, and enduring relevance of his music.
He was really just carrying the mantle. I think in his own mind even, he probably thought that he was taking over from Woody Guthrie, which puts the lie to that theory because it's been going on all the time. And there've always been poets and balladeers, you know, and Bob was just, I think Bob is an extremely gifted one.
I like his style. I like the way he writes. I like the independence. I like the attitude that he comes from. And I haven't... the first time I've heard him, and I recently heard some of his new stuff, and I still feel the same way.
His words, and the fact, I mean, he kept me alive, and I'm sure lots of other people too, insofar as he talked about things that nobody else talked about, and he expressed pain that was inside all of us that nobody else expressed.
There's just some music that's ingrained. It does something to you, just like a smell. It creates memories, you know, and brings them back. And there's a lot of memories attached to these songs for me. I think for a lot of people, obviously.
Among his fans are rock and roll's biggest names, many of whom paid tribute to the Hibbing, Minnesota native at an all-star pay-per-view concert at Madison Square Garden. The event, which celebrates the 30th anniversary of Dylan's first album, features a who's who from the rock and country world, all performing their renditions of Dylan classics.
It is a wonderful event, and I think historically a generation is going to really be treated to something that's very special.
Well, he's kind of like the William Shakespeare of folk rock. I mean, he invented a style that nobody had thought of before, and it still sustains people to this day. I mean, stuff stands up.
He's the king. He wears the crown. We're the subjects. Loyal subjects.
The 51-year-old rock icon shows no signs of slowing down. He maintains a regular touring schedule, and he is set to release his 35th album next month. A solo acoustic album, just Bob Dylan, his guitar, and his harmonica. Pretty much the same way it began for him 30 years ago. Mark Shearer, CNN Entertainment News, New York.
Still to come on Showbiz Today, Ruben Blades wants the top job in Panama.
Welcome back to the Week in Rock. The 30-year recording career of Bob Dylan was the subject of a very pricey, non-benefit tribute at New York's Madison Square Garden last Friday night, with Neil Young, Eric Clapton, and George Harrison turning in some standout performances, and Sinead O'Connor taking it on the chin from some very angry non-fans. Take a look.
Can you really believe it that actually George Thorogood got to be on the stage with Bad Bob, one of the Beatles, Neil Young, John Hammond, June Carter Cash, Johnny Cash, the greatest names in the musical entertainment business, and Bad Bob has touched them all.
And the loser now will be ready to win, for the times they are changing.
I was watching people like Tracy Chapman singing those songs, The Times They Are Changing, and Masters of War, and the audience was applauding at the end of every verse, you know. The lines, the words are still as relative now to this generation as they were to us.
We volunteered as roadies, and then they said, well, as long as they're going to be there, just let them play. Let them play one song.
He just sort of gives you strength as a writer and as a guitar player, because he's been doing it for so long and doing it so well.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning, I'll come following.
I think his music is like any great novel or any great piece of symphonic work. It's timeless, and it's not just restricted to one time period.
Let us not talk falsely now. The hour's getting late.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sinead O'Connor.
O'Connor, who hasn't performed in public since tearing up a photo of the Pope on Saturday Night Live 2 weeks ago, was met with a resounding chorus of boos. After 2 attempts by the house band to start her performance of Dylan's I Believe in You, O'Connor received a quick pep talk from Chris Christopherson. In response to the booing, which never let up, O'Connor tore into a furious rendition of Bob Marley's War, the song she sang during her Saturday Night Live appearance. When she finished, she left the stage, visibly shaken, into the arms of Christopherson. At the reception, O'Connor stuck around for the finale, where the 4 dozen musicians gathered around Dylan for a rousing version of his song, Knockin' on Heaven's Door.
Okay, in political news, following in the footsteps of his running mate, Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Albert Gore Jr. at 8 with the Day in Rock, and we hope you'll join us then.
Life is but a joke.
Taking their bass lines to the baseline. Your favorite celebs shoot the thrill on MTV's second annual Rock and Jock basketball game coming up next.
Let us not talk falsely now. The hour's getting late.
In 1962, Bob Dylan changed the face of popular music. Now in 1992, live in concert on pay-per-view, together on one stage, Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, George Harrison, John Mellencamp, Willie Nelson, Sinead O'Connor, Tom Petty, Neil Young, and much more. Columbia Records celebrates the music of Bob Dylan. This once-in-a-lifetime event can only be seen live on pay-per-view, Friday, October 16th from Madison Square Garden. Be sure to order this concert. Don't miss out.
Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. There's further patronage information in the video descriptions below. Thanks for all the support and making the channel grow.